You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that you're here, as always. And if this is the first time that you've ever tuned in, welcome. I'm so glad that you found the show, and I'm honored that you're here. And this is a fun episode to get started on if you've never listened to the show before. We don't always talk about psychics and mediumship and spirituality, but when we do, I'm a happy girl because this is something that I feel so deeply within myself. My sense of intuition, my sense of feeling connected to something more than we can actually see is so strong. So I love having experts on who can kind of expand upon that, who share their knowledge and really just blow the little that I know kind of out of the water, and to scale that all across the world through people like you listening to the show, I think is pretty magical. And we're going to get into the magical today. I'm speaking with renowned spiritual medium Sarah Renee, and she's joining me for a conversation on spirituality, mediumship, and connecting with loved ones on the other side. Now, through her work conversing with those who have crossed over, she's able to explain what happens to us when we die, how we form soul contracts with our friends and family before we're even born, and how to access the tremendous amount of support from our spiritual team of angels, guides, and departed family members. Now, over her career, Sarah has helped thousands of people all around the world experience a profound and deeply healing connection with spirit. So this episode is about explaining what actually happens to us when we die, but then also how we connect and seek guidance from those who are not in the physical plane, but who want to support us, who are there if you just simply ask. So I think you're going to get so much value out of this episode. Not only is it a fun and interesting topic to listen to, but it's also going to give you practical takeaways on how to actually implement this in your own life. And I think as humans, it's in our DNA to have a sense of faith, a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves, something that we can't always explain. And so this is going to be right in that wheelhouse. So not only are you learning something, but then you can go and use it in your own life. You know, if you have to make a tough decision or you're unsure about something, ask for help and see what comes up through the signs to give you that sense of direction. So I think you're going to love this episode. I certainly did recording it. It's longer than our normal half hour, so that gives you some indication of how interesting this topic was. If you do enjoy the episode, please share it with a friend. And of course, keep those reviews coming. And if you're not sure on how to leave a review, I've got a link right in the show copy. You just click on that and it'll take you to the review page. And then you just click 5 stars and that's it. You're done. So please enjoy this episode with medium Sarah Renee. Hey guys, before we dive into this episode, I want to mention show sponsor RS Koso. Koso is a century-old traditional fermented drink out of Japan, and it's made from more than 100 vegetables, fruits, and plants. And because it's fermented, it contains probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics, and it tastes really good, actually. It's like a sweet Japanese plum juice. And I did the 3-day cleanse last summer, and it came in this very tall, beautiful bottle with beautiful packaging. I almost didn't want to open it. And I was afraid that I was going to be really tired and moody when doing a cleanse because that's pretty typical for me. But I actually ended up having more energy and my skin was glowing and I just felt strong. Like I could still work out. I was still, of course, drinking a lot of water with it. But then afterwards, I just felt like I completely reset my gut. And with that, I could take on the world. Now, Koso is non-GMO, they're dairy-free, vegan-friendly, Japan-made, and 100% natural. So if you are interested in trying this cleanse out for yourself, head on over to rskoso.com, that's rskoso.com, and be sure to use my code UNSTRESSED, which will save you 25%. Well, hello, Miss Sarah Renee. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I like to kind of dive in with a bigger question to start us all off. I'm curious, when did you start to know, or when did you discover that you had these extrasensory abilities?
Like looking back, I would really say as a child, they were the strongest, but I was so afraid, so as a kid, I would have like severe night terrors. In one home that we lived in for a few years, I couldn't sleep alone ever. And my parents, like my poor parents, they tried everything, like all the tricks. And I was just, it was, you would think that something was trying to kill me, like it was so severe. And finally we moved and then I was okay. But yeah, I would see these like dark things, in the corners. I would feel like all these people talking to me all at the same time. And then when I was 5, my grandmother passed away, and she died of cancer in the middle of the night, on hospice. And my mom got the call, and I remember she let us know. And I was demanding that she take me to the hospital to say goodbye. I was like, Grandma's not going to leave until I say goodbye. And so my poor mom, she's like grieving. It's 3 a.m. She's driving her 5-year-old child to the hospital to see her, deceased mom. And she's like thinking, I'm going to traumatize my kid. Like, but I remember going into the hospital room and having a conversation where my grandmother was like sitting on the bed next to me. And, really her body was lying there. And I just remember talking to her and her telling me like, I wasn't going to see her, but she was going to be around and it was going to be okay. And then she left, and I just got up and I was like, okay, we can go home now.
Wow.
I think that was like probably the most prominent incident where it was evident that I wasn't maybe normal.
But like, kudos to your mom for like taking you there. I think a lot of moms would be like, no, just get back to bed. We'll deal with this in the morning. So it sounds like there was something about her too that was more awakened or sensitive, like you.
Yeah, she's definitely, and it's funny because I don't know that she would have thought of like or described herself at that time as like super spiritual or whatnot. But I mean, we always had dogs. We had like fairy yards, as she would say, like with all the trees and fairy houses. And she was very grounded, but she was deeply spiritual and always like, talked about Mother Mary and the saints and the angels and all of that. So it definitely, I think, gave me such a huge like boost, almost, having that foundation for sure.
Oh my gosh. So this just spurred so many questions. I'm going to try to keep it organized, but just to kind of set the groundwork here for listeners who aren't as attuned to this kind of work in this kind of field, what is exactly a medium? How is it different than maybe being psychic instead?
Yeah. So kind of the rule of thumb is essentially that all psychic mediums are psychic, or all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Okay. So that's kind of what we all say. But, it's essentially the difference is that a medium has the ability to connect with the other side versus a psychic that kind of reads the energy or, just focuses on future tarot or, that kind of thing. And so, for me, most of my work is bringing through people's loved ones who have passed away and are in the afterlife. And it was funny, like a couple of years ago, I started to get this niche of bringing through babies who haven't, been born yet, either way before pregnancy or during fertility processes or during pregnancy. And so that's been really fun too. So those are kind of the majority. And then I bring through like angels and guides and that, for more like career guidance and relationship guidance and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Cause, like I was saying before, I was doing research on you before this interview, and I saw that you talk about not only just speaking to people who are on the other side, but teams, spiritual teams. What is that about? What does that entail? And do we all have a supportive team around us of spirits?
Yes. So that, it's funny. I kind of just started that term of like spirit team, because I found myself in my journal, I would write like, dear God, and then it would be like God, angels, grandma, so-and-so. And it got to the point where like half the paper was like, dear, all these people. And I would see like collectives, around everyone, when I'm out and about or, all of my clients, like, and so we all have this like combination of, loved ones who have passed and, or, ancestors or like great grandparents that maybe we don't even know, watching over us. And then, a guardian angel. And then sometimes there's some archangels in there and then some other guides. And so it was like, to call it a spirit team was a really great way to just kind of get straight to the point, call on everybody all at once, and to just kind of shorthand it almost.
Yeah. And is it like they're always there ready to help, or do you have to pray to them or call them in for them to give you support?
Yeah. So yes, they're always there. And, because we have free will here, there has to be that ask or that permission given, for that divine intervention. And I think, sometimes they'll intervene like, let's say somebody's just like really sabotaging or in, putting themselves like in dangerous situations. It's like they can kind of only protect us as much as we allow them without our asking, if we're like bound and determined to do something, or like somebody else's free will, that's when like, when you hear of like really tragic, like homicides or things like of that nature is essentially when somebody else's free will kind of overrides that divine will. But usually you'll see, people will describe kind of feeling taken out of their body or like protect it. It's like they still try to protect this as best as they can.
Yeah. I'll never forget. My mom told me this story about her mother when she was a little girl. She told her she was playing out in the front yard and her brother kicked a ball into the street and she ran to go get it. And a car was coming and she actually saw an angel stop the car and move her. And this, my grandmother was very, conservative and not, woo woo at all. And for her to share that with her daughter and then for her to share that, like, I'll never forget that story. And she said he was very tall and it was the most beautiful angel, beautiful entity she had ever seen. And so, I mean, from a very young age, I've always believed in this just from my own family stories.
Yeah, we always talked about, like, my mom always kind of talked about that too, of like, that call on your angels, like ask them for help and they can, intervene. We always had those books with like stories like that, so.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how does religion kind of play into all of this? Because it seems like this is very kind of esoteric and then you've got like religion on the other side. I mean, how does it all kind of meld into where we can access this, but also not feel like we're living in la la land, because I want it to be accessible to the listener to where you feel empowered to call on these guides, but you also don't feel like you're playing pretend.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I love that question. Cause I'm all about, my guides always joke, like I'm all about practicality.
Yeah.
You have to make it useful for people. Otherwise it's pointless.
Right. Exactly.
I always tell people to like, if you are in a religious affiliation, like to make it work for you. Like you don't have to call on my guides if they don't resonate. Like if Mother Mary doesn't resonate for you, like that's okay. I mean, and that's like the parameters that we as humans, I think, put on things. Like when I see guides, like I'll see different angels with everybody, like no matter what their religion is, or like I see spirit teams around my clients who are atheists, and so we all have access. I think it's just our own, it's like working with our own belief systems to make it accessible. So I tell people like calling on God or the universe or goddess or angels, like it's all the same. It's that divine energy system essentially, or that, higher frequency. And, to make it really, I feel like the thing about making it accessible and like you said, like not feeling like you're in la la land is like really asking for tangible signs and like tangible results. So, in that sense, like something that I work with my clients on is like, okay, if you ask, and like, let's say it could even be like your mom, like if your mom passed away and you're wanting to connect with her, but like you want to feel like you're not pretending, like you said, like asking her like, hey, send me a sign that you're around. And then like, let's say you're outside walking and you see a butterfly, or like maybe you even see 5 butterflies. but you're still like, the mind can be tricky. It can be like, well, maybe you're just making it up, but it's just springtime and there's butterflies everywhere. So then following up and asking like, is this really you? Can you send another sign to confirm? And so then you kind of get this domino effect of when you do that, where the signs are just constantly flooding in all day long, and you feel like there's no way you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
And then, and really asking and noticing and paying attention to, like, when you pray and ask for help with something, how does it go? And how does it go when you don't do that? And like, you kind of have to almost use your self-talk to like talk to your mind to point out very consciously and purposefully, like, look, we hadn't been asking for divine assistance here, and then we did, and then this opened up and this happened. So we can trust it. So it's almost like you really take the time to prove it to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And again, just bringing in that practicality, I think is really, especially now, with everything, you can plan everything on your calendar, you can mark everything. And it's just like, okay, well, here's the evidence right here, and I didn't have this. I love that. I love that analysis. But how did you really grow this skill? I mean, I know it came naturally to you when you were a child, but it seemed like it was really, in the past 7-8 years that it became, a full force in your life. So can you talk to us about how you grew that skill and how you really brought that out and had the courage to do that?
Yes. So when I was 18, was when I went to, I just got a reading with an astrologer medium that I was referred to. And kind of like most of my clients, I didn't even go to her thinking that she would tell me I was a medium. I just wanted life advice. But she was the first one that explained to me, like, you have these abilities, have you had these things happen? And I was just like, it was like my whole life made sense, right? Like in that moment. And I still really struggled back and forth. And in my mid-20s, I went into yoga teacher training, and I started to build, I started meditating every day and really building more of a spiritual foundation. And I also I got sober. So I quit drinking and went through 12 steps. And part of in the 12-step work was this prayer of thy will be done. And between my meditation practice, yoga, and that kind of willingness and that asking for divine will to come be done, it was like, I want to say it happened organically, not that I wasn't putting effort in, but it was like I was teaching yoga and I started being able to do, like, I started seeing my clients' energy and getting guided to like do energy healing. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. This is safe. Like, this is okay. Like, nobody will think I'm crazy. And, and then their loved ones started coming through. And it was really scary. And I really felt, I remember that first time, like, I told somebody that their person was here, and I was just like, oh my God, she's going to freak out. Like, I was so terrified, but it ended up being so deeply healing and such a loving experience for her.
Yeah.
That I was really like, okay, I'm just going to trust you, to the universe or to God and all of that. Like, if this is what you want me to do, like, this is what I'm going to do, but just keep me safe and help it be tangible for people, because it was kind of my fear almost of being like I didn't want to be in La La Land all the time. Like, I really,
or to be
wanted it to
judged,
be real.
I'm sure, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I didn't want to be one of those people that, like, lives in the woods. And but not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was like, I had this stereotype in my mind of like, I don't want to be that person that's like the outcast, right? Or
the witch in the woods. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So when you see, like, I can definitely relate to like seeing people's energy, certainly feeling it. When you feel or see people's loved ones come through, do you actually physically see a person, or do you just get like a sense of, well, it's a male or it's a female? How does it come through to you?
So like, it's almost like for me, if you're like aware, it's like I become, when I'm like tuning in and getting ready for a session, it's like I'm aware of my energy field. So that's like the first like level of awareness that goes on. Mm-hmm. And then I'm setting my intentions for my client. And it's like I'll feel their loved one like step into my energy field. Mm. And then usually it's like the initial, okay, it feels like a fatherly figure, or they feel motherly, or like a fun uncle, or like they're kind of give me just like that overall feeling and gender. And then it's like they get more and more into my field to the point where I'll usually feel how they passed. They'll take me through their passing as like a way to tell the person, who they are and what they felt. And sometimes it's kind of trippy because I'll like look down and literally like my arm will look like somebody else's. Like,
wow.
Like I feel like I'm in their body.
Wow.
And then they show me pictures, like it's kind of like in my mind's eye. So I don't see them like I see you, in front of me. I see them more in my head and feel them. And so it's kind of like this, it sounds like overwhelming when you describe it, but it all somehow flows like during the session of like hearing things, seeing things, feeling things. And I'm just like rambling off, for my clients. And, usually it all comes together like way better than I could have planned. So.
Wow. Have you ever been in a session and like nothing is coming through and you're like, I'm sorry, like no one is showing up? Or do people always show up?
I'm at eight times over the last like 8-9 years where the reading like hasn't gone. It was mostly in my early years. I've only had like one in the last like 4 years. I've only had it happen one time.
Wow.
But where I just stopped the session, like, cause I mean, I'm not going to like,
right.
It's like not something you can fake your way like through. At least I can't, so what I just always stop the session and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just not getting anything. And obviously, I wouldn't charge in that case, but it's very rare. I was finding a lot in the beginning. This is so silly, but like, I didn't realize that people would come to sessions hungover.
What?
Because like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
But I was getting a lot of people who would come hungover, and now it's like in my, like, I really advise people, like, please don't come intoxicated and please don't come hungover, because it does really make the session a lot more difficult. Like it's fine if I'm doing a group and everybody's having a glass of wine or something, like that doesn't seem to be a big deal. But like, it's that if people are in a really heavy vibration, it makes it very difficult.
That's so interesting to me. And it's almost like I've always thought that alcohol is such, I mean, obviously it's a depressant, it kills brain cells, but it's like, it does something more than that. It like kind of tampers down your own mind's eye. Is that why you got sober? I mean, is that really when your gifts kind of blew up, when you got that out of the picture? That's
like, they just went to a whole other level. It's like, I had them a little bit, but I would have never been able to like do a full reading and have it be like strong enough to be valuable for somebody before sobriety.
Yeah. So to the woman listening, I mean, I feel like we all kind of have this ability. We've all, have intuition, obviously, especially as mothers. Is it something that we can work on our own time and kind of access? Do we have to quit drinking? Do we have to meditate and do yoga every day? Like what are some best practices for the woman listening to kind of bring this up in her own life? I'm not talking about, talking to your ancestors and things like that, but just being able to be more in touch with other energies and just getting that guidance from your guides when you need it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I always talk about like prayer and meditation is like giving permission. It's like talking and listening, right? So they kind of go together. So, even if you have like no time, if you can carve out 5 minutes and, even if you spend 1 minute talking, like, please give me insight on this, please give me, guide me on that, even just a simple, please send divine intervention my way, or help out with my kid or whatever it is. And then, breathing a few rounds or listening to a guided meditation or anything. It doesn't matter really the technique, but what I find is that when you take the time, even just a few minutes just to get quiet and start to cultivate that awareness, it comes out in the rest of your day. So you might then go out in your house and everybody's screaming and running around. But because you've taken that time to plug in, you're more in tune, even with the chaos. And the more consistently, so consistency is a huge thing that I see with my clients of first, people who meditate 30 minutes, let's say once a week, but not at all the other days. That's great. You're definitely going to feel some benefits, but to really expand your intuition, I find that smaller bits of time more consistently are more helpful for that. And then, really practicing a good practical tool if you're really wanting to cultivate that connection and keep it more steady throughout your day is setting little reminders in your phone with to just, and you can focus it wherever you want. You can have a reminder to check in on your energy or your kids' energy or the energy of your house. What's the energy doing right now? Or it can be just a reminder of, hey, spirit team, please help intervene on behalf of my highest and best good. Or something. So that starts to get you checking in and asking for signs throughout your day, and just for a minute here and there.
Oh, I love that. Again, going back to practicality, I can roll with that. We all can roll with that.
Yeah. It's you could be in the car, driving and you can be okay, give me a sign, you don't have to stop everything and go.
Yeah. And I love that so much more than going to your phone to seek out distraction or going, to go somewhere else. Really checking in, tuning in is it's a different mindset than going for, even if you just want to connect with others online. And that's why we go to social. I think it's just such a shift, in what you're doing with your mind at that time, your energy, everything.
Yeah. And you'll notice too, with how you feel of, you probably notice this being intuitive and sensitive yourself of when, not that social media is bad at all, but when we do go outside of ourselves, to connect, we're going into that energy versus really centering and coming back into our own energy. So when you have a lot going on in your day, I find that going outside of ourselves, it can be tempting because it feels like an escape a little bit, so it's really tempting and it's fine, but it can cause more anxiety.
Yeah.
And it can actually cause more confusion versus taking a minute to breathe and tune in and ask for divine guidance, and that usually you'll feel it in your system, the difference of overwhelm versus calming, centering,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
Once you get used to that, I think it's easier to make it a habit.
For sure. But I do want to switch gears to talk more about your niche, calling in the babies that haven't been born yet, that are is it something I've always felt like my children picked me and my husband, as their parents. I mean, even when they were really young, I used to say what was it like before you were here? Do you remember, just to see what they would say. And both of them said that they chose us as their parents. So, So tell me, give me your perspective on that. And, do we have soul contracts with our kids before they're born, or even with our spouses, with our own family, our parents? Go into all of that because I find it so fascinating.
Yeah.
This episode is also brought to you by Lugs. Lugs is a brand you probably remember. It started back in the 90s, but they've never wavered from having their pulse on what is stylish and also realistically priced. I wore the boots today on my trip to Costco because why else do you leave the house? And it was so cute. It totally uplifted my entire outfit. I felt like I was kind of on a runway in a lot of ways because it was just so chic and so cute with what I was wearing. And I was actually wearing leggings with it. So it's surprising that I felt so, I don't know, so chic, but that's kind of the beauty of the brand. And if you use my code UNSTRESSED, that will save you 30% off at lugs.com. That's LUGZ.com. And just something that I want you to remember about the brand. It's a great brand, not just for you, but for the entire family. So they're stylish, realistically priced, and great for everyday wear. And another thing that I think is really important is that they're really comfortable. So not only are you going to feel cute when you go out to the grocery store or wherever you're going, but you're also going to feel comfortable and chic at the same time. So be sure to head on over to lugs.com and use my code UNSTRESSED to save.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So I definitely see like soul contracts and kind of how they explain it to me is like, if you imagine like if we have a soul family, so it's not always everyone that we're related to biologically, but it can be friends, partners, different family members, etc. So at some point, all of our souls end up on the other side, and then we kind of all decide like who wants to learn what, who wants to do what, and so we create these agreements with one another of I'm gonna. So one of your kids might have been your mom in a past life. And then over there, you're like, okay, I'm going to be the mom this time. You guys be siblings, and let's see how this goes, or because I want to learn this and you want to learn that. And so there will be these agreements based on that. And then, the souls of children do usually, they absolutely pick their parents. And what's interesting is I've even seen like, even in cases of like adoption, let's say, a lot of times the soul will pick the biological parents, or there will be a soul agreement of the soul to come through as some type of lesson or like a little experience, but where it was never agreed upon that they would be raised in that family, where there is a soul agreement, even in those cases, to be raised by the adopted family.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's like there's so much more of a plan, than we understand. And they usually will pick, if you think about like everybody talks about like your purpose, like your life purpose. So a lot of times, we'll pick our parents, or a soul will pick their parents of like who will help them the most with their purpose, whether it's teaching them lessons and like, maybe being slightly dysfunctional so that they have to like heal it. And, that's part of their purpose, or help others, or, to somebody who's more maybe acceptable and artistic, like supporting, musician, or somebody who has a career that might not be, really acceptable or celebrated in another family. And so a lot of times, they'll pick, and then kids, will have an individual relationship like with each parent. That's very important. Sometimes I see clients who are like, I really want my kid to have like this connection with her dad, let's say. And it's like, but that child's soul has the connection with her dad. Like she might have a whole other connection with him that is designed perfectly because she needs the balance of both parents, for whatever she's going to go do in her life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's really, and sometimes too, there's like I was just bringing through, I actually had a client who her son is now, I think he's 2. So he's a little one, and I brought him through like before she was pregnant. So it's been fun to see.
Wow.
And he's like a little, he's kind of in that phase where he's a little bit of a terror.
Oh yes, I'm well aware.
Of like and he's really bossy, and he's really loud, and he's very like demanding, but what I've seen in doing the sessions, and what I saw in his soul was that he was going to come through with these qualities that would help him be like a lawyer or a politician or something. Like, it's like he's going to do something with public speaking and arguing and debating. And so it was like he needed his parents to really help teach him, how do you use these skills in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you use your loud voice to maybe stick up for other kids or to share or to communicate, but respectfully?
Yes.
And so sometimes, like, even those things that seem like, oh my gosh, what is this happening with my child? It's, they need you to help them not just turn it off.
Yes.
But use it in a healthy way, or express it in a healthy way, and trusting that they chose you because you're capable of that. So I think sometimes parents can feel, I'm sure it can feel overwhelming. But knowing that, like, you have whatever skill set is needed for your child.
Absolutely. I mean, that right there is going to be the clip on social, because I think that is exactly what we've all needed to hear and need to be reminded of, because I fully believe that. But again, when you're in the throes of parenthood and it can feel overwhelming and you've been with the kids all day and you're just like pulling out your hair, I think we need that reminder to like, come back, take a deep breath. It's okay. This is all part of the plan, and you need to help them and not squash that down. Don't make them little robots, because what's really, I think, going to help them be successful is their own creativity, their own uniqueness and their own strengths, and to not make them like everyone else and not feel like you have to be judged because they're not, this perfect little like idea of what a kid should be like, in a public setting, and I'm not saying, run around the store and be crazy, but to not squash that spark, because, I think that's probably what's happened, a lot in the past. And I'm just so grateful for people like you who are putting this out into the world, and mothers who are listening right now and who are going to be embodying that and be like, no, I'm not going to buy into that. That doesn't have to be our future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it goes the other way around too. If you have maybe a really sensitive kid who's very sensitive to energy and more introverted and a little more quiet, like, whereas like, I think society, I think we went through a phase where it was very, yes, you wanted the well-behaved kid, but it was also like, no, like speak up louder, like go, participate more, like have more friends. Like it was almost, like, and so like not, shooting all over your kids, and like more like helping them, helping cultivate and like nourish their natural essence and like help it develop, like almost like you're helping, it sounds so cheesy, but like a plant, bloom or something like, but really helping to nourish those qualities so that they come out in a really healthy, balanced way, whatever that's like, and trusting that they have those qualities for a reason.
Yeah. Do you think that we're all here because of that? Because we're all supposed to come here for something specific? Or is it or when you add in the free will, can that change? Can that purpose and direction change? I don't know. It's a hard thing to grasp.
Yeah. And that's, it's a tricky, that's a tricky concept for sure. But, I feel like we come in with this core soul essence that our purpose is kind of defined from. So like, let's say, your soul, like you're that person who always helps people and always listens to people and can feel their energy, maybe empathic, and like your soul might be a healer or a counselor energy at its core. But maybe that like where the free will comes in is, how are you going to express that purpose? Are you going to, be the one in your community that counsels everyone and helps everyone, that friend and that person in your family? Or are you going to actually like become a coach or a counselor, or like do a podcast where you're talking about things that help people, or write? Like, so I don't feel like it's so defined. Like, I don't feel like it's necessarily so rigid of like, like back to that boy I was talking about, like, it's not that he has to go become a lawyer or become a politician, but it's like something in that, like I see him doing something where he's debating and working on rights for people, but then like his soul will have the free will in his life of how is that going to unfold? You know, is he going to be an activist, a lawyer, just a CEO who's like invents something really amazing for the planet? Like, so he gets to figure that out and kind of determine that with his own passions and his own motivations and life. And so I feel like it's really this beautiful, like, integration of divine will and free will, and seeing how we can, you know, really marry the two in our life paths.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty, that's a really intelligent design anyway, God, the universe, whatever, just because the world changes so fast. So a career that, you know, might have been, you know, when you're born, it might not even exist when you are at that, you know, 35, 45 point in your life, you know, so it's good that you can kind of massage that
you can
out.
like adapt, you know, with the flow of things.
Right. AI is taking over everything. So you can't be a lawyer anymore. But okay, this again is a heavier question, but I feel like the audience can handle it and you certainly can handle it. What happens to us when we do cross over? Is it different than, you know, if we're in an accident or we have cancer for a long time, or, you know, we're got, you know, murdered or something like that? Like, does the soul cross over in the same way each time? Or, you know, do we leave and go to the light at the same rate? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah. So it's, you know, there's, on one part of that, there's the free will aspect, right, versus divine will. So, I mean, I've definitely seen cases of murder or accidents where, you know, it wasn't necessarily in the plan that the person cross over right at that time, you know, where it was too soon. But how they describe it when they come through is like, even if it was too soon, like, you know, they're really in, when they cross over, like, it's still loving, that there's no, like, they don't feel shorted. Like, nobody's ever come through and been like, I was shorted on life, you know, like it's still very, like, they're usually just grateful that they got to be here and have all the love that they have. And it's much easier when we cross over, you know, for the person who's crossed over than the people left alive, because they can see us, they can see everything, you know, they always compare it to, like, if you think of, like when there's security cameras up and like in the room where there's all the little cameras, it's like, they can watch all of us like that, like at the same time. So they don't miss anything. So for them, they don't grieve in the same way that we do when we lose somebody. And, so when we actually leave the body, like, usually accidents will feel like let's say like a car accident, like I'll usually feel like I'm like knocked out of my body. Like, it's just like, I feel all this pressure and it's just like so fast. Like, and then I'll be like looking at the body, like from the side, like, wow, like that's, and usually like, it sounds so, you know, kind of morbid, but like, usually there's almost like a shock of like, wow, like that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done. like versus like a pain. It's usually more of like spirit, like they have a good sense of humor, like much better than most of us. So, you know, they kind of laugh, or like they can handle or accept those things much easier than we can. And generally, because we have these spirit teams, there will be an angel or a loved one. Like, there's always somebody there. So, you know, even if it is a situation like let's say, like, I mean, kind of like, I think what people think of like worst case, right, is that somebody dies and they're alone and it takes a while and it's like excruciating, you know, like that's kind of the vision. And, you know, in those cases, I'll see where their soul will leave their body actually like before their body's completed dying, like right before all their organs shut down, or like in life support, you know, cases that happens even sometimes in, you know, patients who are ill, like right before they don't even feel the struggle to breathe at the end. Like they leave their body right before that. So to know, like, one, they're not laying there suffering the whole time. And two, they're never alone. Like they're usually greeted by, even a great grandmother, or, like, let's say, like, if they're young and they haven't lost anybody that they've known yet, like there'll be somebody from the family that their soul recognizes, or an angel figure, like somebody will be there to help them, cross over. And a lot of times they'll show me, like, kind of passing through a lot of their loved ones on their way to cross over. And so, sometimes people will describe, like, oh, I had this dream, or I had this weird sensation of like wind moving through me, but there was no wind, or, and so sometimes that's their way of saying goodbye, on their way to the light. And then, it's they usually take me through a life review where, rather than just like seeing our life play out, it's like we get to feel everything that we caused, or everything that we put out. Wow. And so, for really good people, that's really pleasant experience, and it can be like really rewarding, like, where you can finally actually feel the ripple effect of that kindness, and of that conversation that you had with that person that you don't even know changed their life. And it's like, you can feel all the good that did. And you can feel like the love of your kids and how much they love you, and like on a whole other level, and all of those things. And then, on the flip side, somebody who maybe caused harm throughout their life, like, they're going to feel the pain that they caused others from that other person's perspective. So it's not so much like a punishment as much as it is for their soul to actually like get the lesson. So it's more of like for education, purposes than, like, you're going to suffer forever. Like,
that's a great segue. So like, is there like a heaven and a hell necessarily, or is it just learning and then coming back and learning lessons again? And, because reincarnation was in the Bible before it was cut out, centuries ago. So it's like, we've accepted that this is true, but then, some people didn't like that, so they took it out. So do we just keep going through until we're fully awakened and don't have to come back? And how does that work?
Yeah. So they always like compare heaven to like a high-rise building, just for logical sense of like the lower floors. And when I say heaven, I mean the afterlife, whatever word you want to use. So somebody who maybe like comes through this life, doesn't learn any lessons, like refuses, whether it's through, addiction, or they just stay stuck in their hatred or whatever, when they cross over, their experience is going to be like going back to school. So it's like their soul gets to go to maybe one of the lower floors where they're going to continue to learn. And then, they come back and hopefully they do a little better, and then they can go a little higher. So it's like, like we reincarnate with our soul family, and then we go over and hopefully we go to a higher floor. And like the top floor is like, if you think of, when we talk about like ascended masters, or like Jesus or Buddha, or, Mother Teresa, or, whoever, like people who just helped so many people and who get to cross over and kind of be done reincarnating and serve more as like angels or guides for other people. So that's like all the way at the top. So then you have all the floors like in between, where we're all kind of cycling in and out of. And like in a family situation where somebody maybe didn't learn their lessons, and so they pass and they have to go to a lower floor. But like, let's say their mom or their grandmother, somebody was a really amazing person and is like at a higher floor, like she can come down, like people from the higher floors can come down to help and see and connect with that person who's still in school, and kind of help their soul to learn more. And so it's not that the lower floors are worse. They're still very loving. Like the soul still gets to be in peace. They're still out of their ego and out of their pain and suffering. It's like more focused on learning versus helping other people.
I get that.
Is really the distinction. And how I personally see hell, and it's funny, I feel like I'm still learning of like, well, what is the exact, like, how is that decided?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've brought through people who were in like organized crime, like people who have done really terrible things, who are on the other side. They might be back at school, but they're still crossed over. So for a long time, I thought that like murder was the thing. And then that happened. And I was like, okay, maybe not. Like, so I think it's something with remorse and with genuine remorse and willingness to learn. So far, because when I will see a soul who maybe killed somebody or did really horrible things and who's stuck here. So I don't really see like a fiery, like down below hell. For me, it shows up as it's more like they're stuck here and they're feeling the way that they killed somebody, or they're feeling like whatever they did to harm somebody, like until their soul, my newest theory is like until their soul is truly remorseful and truly willing to learn to do better, and then they can go cross over, do better. So that's what I've come to see as what I would say is like hell is that just being stuck here at a really lower vibration. And that's like when people describe like being haunted, or having their house be haunted, or, entities and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And for us that are living, can we actually help them move on, or at least get out of our house? I mean, if that's happening to people, because I've had friends who say like, I can absolutely have had someone in my house, like messing with me in the middle of the night. Like, it's not okay. It was really scary. I didn't like it. So how do we nudge them out and really help them?
Yeah. And for moms in particular, because I think the number one reason people hire me to do house clearings is because kids can't sleep and are being terrorized.
So sensitive.
Because those beings, like they're in this really dark place where they just want to cause harm and fear because they're kind of feeding on that lower energy. So when they know that a kid is sensitive, I mean, like it's really sad, but they're going to want to freak them out to feed off that fear. So, it is, I do suggest teaching kids something, it doesn't really matter about religion, but like something higher that they can call on that's of the light. Because if they can say, angels or the universe or grandma or whoever help, take these scary people away, like that gives them, it empowers them to not just be victimized by those lower level spirits. So, and
then there's nothing to feed on at that point, I would think.
Exactly. So they can, and like when they're in there, so those types of energies have to listen to us. And so really commanding, even for adults, rather than giving into the fear, like commanding and calling on your spirit team or calling on your angels or the light and saying, in the name of God or in the name of the light or in the name of the angels, I command that you leave my house. Like, you're not allowed to be here. You're not allowed to talk to my kid. You're not allowed to mess with me. Move on. And so you can really be assertive and command that they leave. And then, another thing, like blessing your home. So, those energies, they like highly sensitive people, and then they like turmoil. So like the higher frequency that you can keep your house, like the more likely they're going to skip over and go somewhere else. So like playing classical music is a really good way, even if, you're not home and you let it play like while you're gone, if you don't like it so much, or like Sanskrit or yoga music or religious music or some kind of music with a high vibration. And then you can bless your home yourself just by going around like each door, and asking that the intention be that only love, and, only really good energy be allowed to enter your home, and that, light be put there to filter out any negative energy. And then I always visualize like flooding my home with like gold and white light, and just like from floor to ceiling, pushing it out the windows and putting angels all around the home. And
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. So that's a really good way. But, and you as a mom, like if your kid is being tormented, like you do have the power to say like, to really like step in for them and say like, you're not allowed to touch my kid,
yeah.
And you have to go now. And sometimes in like really like where something keeps coming back, I'll put an Archangel Michael pendant under kids' mattresses. And that usually helps a lot too. Okay. So that's a good little, you can get them on Amazon for like $1.
Everything on Amazon, even ghost removal.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay. So we've covered so much. I could talk to you for so long, but just to kind of round everything out, what is something that you want the audience to remember from this talk? Everything that you've lived through, everything that you've studied, that you intuitively know, what do you want the woman listening to this to really take away?
I think the most important thing is really just to know how supported you are, and to know that, you might not see it, you might not feel it every second of the day, but that support is there. And, that you, especially as women, like you're a vessel of life, and you're a vessel of energy as well. And so you can really like, have the power to tap in and to shift the energy of any situation, that you're in, and, to not forget how powerful you are, and to not forget that support system around you, and that all you have to do is ask, right? And just give that permission, and to know that you're doing a great job, like probably not doing as bad as you might think you are some days. And, that it's so much more complex than our human minds can even grasp, like these soul agreements and, marriages and relationships and kids and families and all of that. And, that if you just show up with just the intention of really living from your soul essence, like, really just doing your best, not in an ego way, but in a true way, like from an inner state, like everything's it's going to come together. Like you will be guided. It will turn out, and I think too, just as moms, like to remember that you are the example for your family, for your kids, and they look, when they'll notice you if you meditate every day, and they'll notice that shift, and it teaches them like really, life-changing techniques, even when they're young, they really learn by watching you. And so to know that, that all of those little things that you do for yourself, like that they really matter.
I love that. Oh, so good. Okay. So where can the audience find out more about you, get your book, listen to your meditations, all the things? Tell us.
Yes. So sarahreneeinc.com is my website, and that has all the information, all the things, everything's there. And And then on Instagram, which my Instagram is now at medium Sarah Renee. And that has like every Saturday I either go live or I put up a guided meditation, video, and I share tools and client stories and all the fun things there too.
So good. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to my audience. This was magical. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo way, like really like life-changing. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and all of us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to our sponsor, Koso Drink. Be sure to head on over to rskoso.com. That's rskoso.com and use my code UNSTRESSED to save. You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast.